Hello folks, hope things are going well wherever you are. We're about to jump into some really cool little bits and bobs here in terms of hobby nightmares. So today was going to be the day that we were going to do a 40k rant with the vaunted Outer Circle, but he's not available for recording today, so I've let him do whatever he needs to do, and I'll do what I need to do and record some hobby nightmares. And tomorrow we'll be doing our 40k rant instead. That'll be up for you tomorrow. So let's jump into Hobby Nightmares, shall we, with Scruffy. And he says, Dear Northern Exile, you can call me Scruffy. Thank you, I have done. I come to you today with two Hobby Nightmares which are separated by 20 years. The first in the early 2000s, and the second one early this year. I started the hobby back when I was 8 years old and dabbled in beastmen, undead, and the like. Anything scary or evil I was obsessed with. I was that kid. I've never been into sci-fi or 40k, it's just not my thing. I've always had a sweet spot for fantasy. Dude, a lot of people are like that. A lot of people are like that. They generally won't really jive with sci-fi. They're more fantasy people. I'd say most people are like that when they're nerds. My friend Steady is an anomaly there. He likes sci-fi and isn't a big fan of fantasy. Kind of weird, but there we go. I have fond memories of trying to build a regiment of zombies. I distinctly remember using scissors to get them off the sprue, as well as UHU glue to stick them together, as I was too young for super glue. They were painted entirely in one thick coat of old Citadel camo green. It's safe to say they weren't winning any golden demons. Shortly after getting into the Lord of the Rings, shortly after getting into the hobby, Lord of the Rings started hitting the big screen, bringing with it, in my opinion, the single greatest line of Games Workshop miniatures have ever produced. Middle-earth strategy battle game. And this brings us onto our first hobby nightmare. I had amassed a large force of evil blokes, including a variety of orcs, urukai, trolls, and even Mama Kill. Looking back now, it was really a clown fiesta of half-built and really badly painted models, but they were mine. And I thought they were cool. Dude, you literally just told people what to do about their models and how they should approach them. Do you know what I mean? They're mine, and I think they're cool. Yeah, doesn't matter what anybody else thinks. If you think they're cool, and you like them, dude, you've won. The complete opposite to this was my friend at the time, let's call him Dave. Dave had a gorgeously painted elven army, all on matching bases. This included elven heroes alongside Treebeard and his Ent boys, which were scattered amongst the elves and looked amazing. Looking back, I suspected that Dave's dad had a hand in painting, but didn't question it at the time. One day, Dave asked if I wanted to play a game of Middle-earth Warhammer, my evil army versus his elven army. Little me was so excited at the thought of playing the game, although I had no idea how to do it. I spent an entire day scrambling my horde together trying to fix them up as best I could, with the big game happening at his house the following day. The day rolls up and I transport my army to Dave's house with only minimal breakages. I walk in and on the large kitchen table is Dave's immaculate elven army on display, all set up and in position. Dave then asks me to place my army on the other end of the table and marks out the deployment area. The table is huge, with absolutely no terrain or line of sight. It's literally just a flat table. You can probably see where this is going. Clueless, with a huge smile on my face, I eagerly start placing up my rabble of miniatures on my side of the table to play my first ever game of Warhammer, albeit Middle-earth. I was enthralled with the sight of my entire evil army on the board, and I was well into it at this point. The game which proceeds can only be described as a massacre, with over 100 elves slaughtering my poor little vulnerable orcs like cattle, with an endless barrage of arrows and nowhere for them to hide. Try and imagine that scene in 300 where the arrows block out the sun. Just instead of Leonidas and his mighty 300 raising their shields, it's Grishnak and his boys with some of the lowest defense points in the entire game. Safe to say, I lost, and I haven't been able to play a game of Warhammer or anything similar to it since. This is my first and only time. I fell out of the hobby when I became a teenager and more interesting things came along, like girls and World of Warcraft. Well, I'm not going to blame the hobby too much for that, because your friend was just being a cheeky little so-and-so. You know, lads will do this, right? Lads will do this. I don't think girls in World of Warcraft taking over your life is Warhammer's fault. I think that's girls in World of Warcraft being cool things to do in the early 2000s. Do you know what I mean? Fast forward 20 years and on to the second hobby nightmare. To set the scene, I'm in the city shopping with my girlfriend, and I convinced her we should go out and check out Games Workshop after being dragged around Primark. I had recently got back into the hobby over COVID, was excited to get back into a store again after all these years to overdose on nostalgia and relive my youth. I had fond memories of going into Games Workshop as a boy, looking at all the amazing display cabinets, terrain boards and walls of metal blister packs, trying to decode how much each blister pack cost, and was a game within itself. Yeah, I remember that back in the day. It's A. Which one was that? That's, how much? After we eventually found this tucked away Games Workshop store, it was about a quarter of the size of the store I used to frequent, with 4 or 5 guys tightly crammed into it. I spent a minute looking at the displays through the window outside before taking the plunge and dragging my girlfriend inside. To my surprise, upon entering, I could see a small Lord of the Rings section in one corner of the store, as well as a small display of some minis. I couldn't believe that Lord of the Rings had its own display still, and I was ecstatic. My enthusiasm, however, was about to be quickly diminished. We took one step into the store and got hit by a thick wave of some of the worst extreme body odour I've ever smelt in my life. The type you can taste. My girlfriend and I looked at each other, and without hesitation, she quickly turned around and noped out of there as fast as she could. I was determined, though, for my younger self to check out the Lord of the Rings stuff. Holding my breath, I delved into the store and had a quick look at the display before it was too much and had to leave. At first, I felt bad for the manager. We'll read that again because I put a pause in there where there isn't one. At first, I felt bad for the manager in that store, but after listening to a lot of your stories and experiences, I agree that it's partly the manager's fault for not saying or doing anything about it. Yeah, have standards. Have standards. I've said this story before, but like I had one guy at my own store who came in, reeked, absolutely reeked, and in the end, I just got sick of it, and he was a normal-looking guy, he just stank to high heaven. And I pulled him to the side and said, listen, man, you know, I need to keep up standards in the store. Like, I don't want parents coming in and smelling BO. I know it's you, because I can smell it, and it happens every time you come in. And he looked like flabbergasted, but not in a like an offended way. He was like, he said, mate, I've got no sense of smell, thank you. I go to the gym before I come here. Like, I have no sense of smell whatsoever. So it's hard for me to gauge, like when I need to shower, when I don't. And I said to him, listen, just err on the side of caution then. When you've been to the gym, don't just throw your clothes on and come in here. Go and shower first. He went, yeah, cool, I'm going to go now. He went and showered, came back, and we never had a problem with him again. So you never know why people smell, man. Like, if you need to call it out and say, listen, man, what's going on? Like, you know, you can't be coming in here smelling like that. It's not a professional. This is my workplace, right? I'm in here 8 to 10, maybe more hours a day. I don't want it to smell like this. Do you know what I mean? Because I have to be here, you don't. Do you know what I'm saying? It's kind of like when we've done prison now twice on the channel, but in back-to-back episodes. But it's like going into a prison cell with a lifer. If you're only in a prison cell for like you know a couple of months, and you're going into like a prison cell where there's somebody in there serving for life, that's his house. It's not yours, right? So you do what you're told, essentially. You know. Again, I've been watching a lot of podcasts recently as I've been working, so yeah, that's where I'm getting all this information from. But anyway, yeah, you know, you've got to make sure that you're treating his house right. Same for a Games Workshop manager. That Games Workshop manager is there all the time, you know? So treat it with respect. And that Games Workshop manager should, in turn, you know, pull things up when they're not hitting that standard. I'm sorry. People say, oh, well, I've never gotten the argument of, well, it's a hobby, you know, it's nerds, what you expect. Well, teach them then. And if they won't learn, tell them to piss off. Simple as. Simple as. Showers are readily available everywhere. Get your clothes washed, get in the shower, or you're not welcome in the store. Simple as. Right? Sorry. Standards. It is literally driving away customers. Me being the customer in this case. I didn't buy anything that day, and I've been to a few less smelly Games Workshop since then, but it's just not the same as it used to be in the early 2000s. I hope you enjoyed these two stories. I'm still loving the hobby, but just collect and paint with the hope of entertaining or entering a painting competition one day. I'm not versed in 40k lore, but every now and then while I'm listening to you talk about 40k, you mention a name and I think, ooh, like the paint. Yeah, Mephiston Red, things like that. Yeah, I know what you mean. I've also attached a picture of a recent Warcry skeleton I painted using the same 20-year-old camo green paint as a painting handle. Okay, let's have a look. Let's have a look. Do love it when we get a bit of models on the old channel here. Ah, look at that. He's a cracking little fella. Look at that. That's brilliant. That's brilliant. I love him. It's adorable. And you can paint, man. That's good paint. Good paint job. I like it. But he is adorable, though. That is adorable. Right, I'll leave him on for a little bit. Alright. Witcher Glass says, Hey North, call me Witcher Glass. I have done. The reason being, this is what I go by in your Discord. I wanted to update something I wrote in the Discord because I had not yet and felt like I should address it. Okay, fair enough. I also wanted to share a hobby nightmare that is currently affecting me as well as my friends. Finally, I want to address some stuff that you have said, but in a positive way. This is a long one, just a heads up. Please take a sip of whatever fine beverage you have. Alright, cool. Lovely stuff. Before I address anything else, let me say I am a Marine Corps veteran. Well, thank you for your service, man. Being a Marine, that is not easy. That is not easy. And this has affected my mental health in numerous ways, but it goes into what I will talk about a little bit later on. Okay. The Discord message that I wrote in your chat was about how I am a college student. I am a psychology/social work double major. Cool. It is a lot of hard work, but my grades are above average, I would say, but only because I spend a lot of time studying. I suffer from severe depression and moderate anxiety, and during this time, I'll be talking about how I will have been off my meds that helped me out quite a bit. The reason I was off them was because they had stopped working and the Veterans Association, VA, had been trying many different meds to help with my depression, but none of them seemed to really work. This is my second bachelor's degree I am in now. The reason being because my GPA, my grade point average, was low from my first degree, and I was not able to get into graduate school like I had originally planned, so I had to shift gears and work on getting my GPA up. Now, here is where the real problem occurs. At this time, I had been feeling like I wanted to unalive myself, and I was going through therapy, but it did not seem to make things that much better. During this time, I had two advisors for my courses, one for psych and the other for social work. We met up, and they were going to help me plan my next semester at the time. Okay. I will admit, at that time my grades were not good, and that my mental health was really bad. My advisors at the time told me I should quit the program because I was too mentally ill, their words, not mine, rather than taking a break, which is what I needed. Mind you, both of these advisors/professors are both clinically trained clinicians. I ended up taking a break and spent a lot of the time spiraling out of control and spent months wanting to unalive myself. But I knew it was not the answer, and realistically it was just chemicals in my brain telling me that I'm feeling bad. The reason I bring this up is because I brought this up in your Discord, and they were really helpful and essentially told me that my professors are just there to teach me not to guide my life, and that definitely helped me. Yeah, they're right. They're right. They are there. They're giving you advice based on your academic performance and what they think you can do in their school, right? They're not telling you their life advice doesn't matter, you know. I eventually sought better help, and then I did start to feel better. I am not doing much better. I'm assuming you meant to put now there, yeah? I am now doing much better, and I'm on meds that do help me, and I have a therapist outside of the VA who is really helping me to work through my trauma as well as depression and anxiety. Thank you for your Discord, they are real ones, and I'm glad that I decided to ask them for their help. Cool, man. Excellent. Excellent. Again, please take a sip of whatever fine beverage you have, as I know this is pretty long as it is. It's not too bad, man. It's fine. You don't go on for ages. You're all good. Alright, let me take Mr. Skeleton off the screen there. There we go. Time for my hobby nightmare. My friends and I have become homeless. I hope that's not literal after all the progress you just made. Our local store, at least for me, was like a second home, and I truly felt at ease there. Two things destroyed that for me, and this was recent, so it's kind of hard to talk about because I'm still a bit frustrated about this. The first part of this is that I had a friend, and we will call him Dave, who has made the entire store into a breeding ground for only tournament players. When I first met Dave, I knew he wanted to do tournaments, but I did not know how bad it would get. I do not mind tournaments, and I've done my fair share of them, but I do prefer casual games. We started by playing on the weekends just against each other, and it was a lot of fun, and I got to know him pretty well, and we became pretty close friends. Okay. Before we go any further, I wanted to say something about, like, casual versus competitive players, right? I need to say this because I saw something over the weekend that kind of, like, irked me a little bit, and it was a gamer in a store environment playing a game. This is on Friday, all right? This a gamer playing a game on the hobby night over on the Wirral. And he's chilling out and he's playing and he starts calling out his opponent for using pretty overpowered tactics. Now, I know the army the other guy's using, right? Grey Knights, quite well. And I'm like, I have to say to him, right? Because I know both of them. I said, look, all this guy is doing is using the rules. Okay? I know the broken things that are in that codex. That there aren't very many of them, combinations, but I know what they are. I know the cheesy tactics you can use. He's not using those. He's simply just using the rules. What you're not doing is using your rules properly, and so it looks like he's got an overpowered army. What you're doing is you're playing so badly, unfortunately, at the moment, that his army looks really good, right? There is a thing in football where it's something that my granddad used to say. He said, we're making them look like a team of Maradonas, right? What that basically means is that the other team you're playing aren't very good, but you're playing so badly that you're making them look like they're really good. I think a lot of casual players tend to fall into this bracket. Do you know what I mean? They tend to fall into the bracket of just being, you know, I don't want to put any effort into selecting my list. I don't want to put any effort into learning my rules properly and learning the combinations that can be strong or weak in my codex. Can't be arsed doing that. I'm going to turn up because that's what a casual player is. No, it isn't. A casual player should still know the rules of his army and his codex, right? He just doesn't play for blood. That's the difference. That's just me, anyway. Okay, we played for months against each other, and then eventually it gradually grew, and we had on average 10 to 12 players every Saturday, and it was a really good time, and looking back, I wish things would have stayed that way. Dave eventually decided to run a crusade, and it was something each of us was looking forward to, and even my now wife, who only plays casually and is still a pretty new player, wanted to join in. I saw some changes in Dave when this started that I was not sure that I liked. Oh, okay. First, is that he would make jokes about my fiancée, my wife now, and say how he wanted to sleep with her. Sorry, I'm just going to read that again. First is that he would make jokes about my fiancée, my wife now, and say how he wanted to sleep with her. Sorry, I'm going to read that again. No, I'm not going to read it a third time. I'm going to read it to myself. Okay, if your friend says this, slap him in the face. No, but if he says it in like a... If he says it like, dude, you know, your woman's really hot, you're doing really well. Good lad, doing well for yourself. That's good. That's fine. No problem with that, right? If he's saying things like, oh, mate, I wouldn't mind getting with her, you know, can I borrow her? That's when you give him a slap in the face. Especially if it's your wife. If it's somebody that you care about enough to put a ring on their finger, or say that this is your partner for the rest of your life, even if you don't want to marry them, that is disrespect, and you don't let another man disrespect your woman like that, even if she's not there. Do you know what I mean? No, mate. We don't do that shit. All right? Wind your neck in, or I'll put it in for you. That's where you go at this stage. You know. Again, there are different levels to this. You know, like your friend could say, "Hey, man, she's really hot. Well done," or you know, that's fine. Respectful comments, even if they're a bit lewd, fine, no problem. You know, but don't go too far. Don't be like, "Oh, mate, she's got an ass like a peach," or "She really looks really good," or "Oh, yeah." Don't start thirsting after your mate's girl in front of him. Nah, man. Nah, that's some bitch behaviour. Don't do that, right? And especially, don't be really crude about it, right? Nah, this person will get a slap in the face, I'm afraid. Having served in the Marines, I have heard some pretty messed up jokes and wrote them off thinking it was just them messing around. Or him messing around. Typing this out, I realise I should have stopped that shit the moment it started. Yeah, man. To be honest with you though, dude, a lot of guys who've been in the Marines, they don't really escalate situations because they've been in situations that are so stressful that some guy saying stuff like this about your girl is not that... Do you know what I mean? They're like, I've got nothing to prove. I know I could deck this guy in 3 seconds. I've got nothing to prove. You know what I mean? Like, they tend to be quite calm. Martial artists too, and boxers, things like that, tend to be quite calm. I will write about this more after I'm done explaining more of his behaviour. Second, he became extremely competitive, and he stopped teaching new players how to properly play the game, and he only started caring about being a competitive player. Third, his jokes, even beyond the one I said, started to get darker and started to have racism thrown in, as well as a lot more joking and being demeaning towards women. The fourth and final one, he would talk badly about everybody. Looking back at all of this, I take responsibility for not doing more and trying to stop some of this when it came about. When I got out of the Marines, all I wanted to do was have a peaceful life. Yeah, mate, I know. And to try and be as happy as I could be, and I think until recently, I was a lot more passive, whereas now I'm a lot more vocal, especially in terms of everything I have written. The crusade came crashing to the ground because everybody involved hated it. And I do not mean disliked, I mean actually hated it, like dreading going because it was one of the most unfun times for a lot of us that we had in the hobby. The crusade died 1 month into what was going to be around a 3 to 5 month campaign. From that point on, Dave stopped coming in on Saturdays and has shifted to a hyper-competitive mindset. We lost a lot of people when the crusade ended, and we never really recovered after that. Since that point, Dave has been running a tournament every month at our store, and he does a tournament every weekend. This has been going on for months. When the crusade ended, I took about a month away from it all, and then I came back. This was during the same time as the school stuff that had been happening. I was very mentally burnt out, and just did not want to be around 40k or anybody from the store at the time. When I came back, pretty much everything had changed, and Dave had made tournaments, and at first, I thought they might be good for our local store, but I then quickly realised how bad it had become. It became a place where higher end tournament players would go for easy wins to practice so they could make their tournament stats look better. Yeah, again, we're seeing... Remember when I said about the bad part of casual players before? Now we're seeing the bad part of competitive players. Do you know what I mean? This is the bad side of competitive players. When you get guys who are apex predators going to like young lads and other people who just want to throw some dice and have some fun and absolutely obliterate them at the top of turn 2 and then go, huh, well, you know, bring a better army next time. Yeah, that's the flip side of this. It really is. Like, if you know your codex pretty well, yeah, your own codex and you're a casual player, you know when you're the person's not playing in playing in the spirit of the game, right? I've had this a few times. I know, if I know my codex very well, and I do know my codex very well, and I play you, and I won't say anything, but I will put you on the no play list. I'll be like, okay, this guy's literally coming at me with everything that he's got at all times. Like, he's literally trying to curb stomp me into the ground at the top of turn 2 when he knows what we're supposed to be doing here is a casual game where we're playing for a couple of hours, right? That person goes on the no play list because you're not playing it in the same spirit that I enjoy, right? This is what it is. But if we have a competitive game where you beat me at the top of turn 4 or 5 and it's quite competitive and we both killed a lot of stuff, dude, I've got no problem. I shake hands after that game, you know? No problem at all. You know, it's you need to learn who's your people and who isn't. Do you know what I mean? That's what I would say. But there are good and bad parts to the casual players, and there are good and bad parts to the competitive players. Some of the best players I know, who I have the most fun with, are competitive players because they know their codexes inside and out, and I know they're so talented, right? They take one look at my list, and within a few seconds, they decide the kind of power level their list needs to be to make it a fun, competitive game. Because they're still practicing the game, right? Even by keeping it competitive. They're showcasing their skills by selecting a list from their models that actually makes the game fun for both players. And they then play their hearts out to try and beat you, right? With the models that they've got and the combinations that they've got, because they know their combinations are on par with yours. Those are the games I love, right? The games I don't love is somebody turning up with a tournament list that they want to practice with, quote-unquote, against my fluffy list, and then they deck you off the table at the top of turn 2 and go, huh, next. That kind of dickhead, right? Yeah. That's the difference. That's the difference. Alright. The same 2 or 3 people would always win the tournaments. And it really is a bad environment. Okay. I have played maybe 2 or 3 tournaments there and knew instantly that I did not want to have anything to do with this. Dave has become what he thinks is a higher end tournament player, and very few of the local people come to the tournaments anymore. Due to being Dave's friend, I am in the inner circle, so to speak, and I have tried to stop a lot of what has been happening now before I left. After I left and came back, everything changed, and what I did not want to happen did. His new right-hand man, while he is not a bad guy, does encourage a lot of this overly competitive behaviour. Now, to address what I said that I would. The jokes that Dave makes seemed harmless at first, and I joked about what did he say? And I joked about sleeping with his wife, and I figured we were just being dumb. So you responded in kind then. Right. Don't do that. Don't do that. That's not very good behaviour. Don't be joking about sleeping with your friend's wife. It's called respect, man. Like, you know, I honestly don't care if it's like, oh no, it's just lads humour. No, dude, have a bit of respect for your friend. You know, take the piss, mate. How did you pull that, dude? How did you do that? You know what I mean? You must have a massive penis or a massive bank account. You know, that kind of thing. That's fine. That's just, you know, you're giving the guy a backhanded compliment by slapping him on the back. Do you know what I mean? Going, oh, yeah. Don't do it in a passive-aggressive way. Just, you know, take the piss. You know? But don't just say, oh, mate, I'd like to sleep with your wife. Like, what the fuck's wrong with you? Then it started to happen more and more and more. And then it has become, every time he sees me, he makes a comment about my wife. Well, dude, you encouraged the behaviour. You didn't stamp on it. And not only that, you indulged him and gave him it back. You told him it was okay. It is now open season to talk about your wife, according to this guy, because you made a joke about his too. Do you know what I mean? I have called him out numerous times for this, and I thought I got through to him at one point, but he just keeps doing it. I realise now that the first time I should have stomped that shit out and set a hard boundary. As far as the other jokes, let me start by saying I do not like racist jokes on the whole, unless it's done by somebody like Dave Chappelle or somebody like him that I like. Okay. I hope you don't mean skin colour there, because I don't subscribe to that. Right? You know, one race doesn't just get to say racist jokes, whereas the others can't. That's not how this works. Sorry. No. No. I will never, ever, ever use a racial slur against somebody unless somebody says it to me first. You know? Done it in Brixton before, where somebody's had to go at me because of the colour of my skin. You know, I'm white, by the way. And I've responded in kind. And they stand there, flabbergasted. How dare you? It's like, do you realise what you just said to me? Like, you started it, dude. I finished it. Walk away. Next step is physicality, and I know you can't handle that shit. So, go away, right? What's good for the goose, my friend? Just don't say racial shit. You know, if you can't take it, don't dish it out. Anyway, I have tried to get him to stop that as well, and I've told him to cool it with that shit. Yeah, good, good. I am not a social justice warrior or anything, but I served with a lot of really amazing non-white people in the Marines, and anytime he makes jokes like that, it seems to me like he could be saying it about them. That is true, yeah. Yeah, this is why I don't say jokes like that. Just don't go there. And they shouldn't either, by the way. The one thing that gets me to turn off, like, a black comedian is if they start doing white guy jokes. I just switch it off. It's the most lazy, bottom of the barrel, you know, terrible joke that you can make. It's just, oh god, here we go. Right, okay, so you're using your own race as a punchline, are you? Brilliant. Fantastic. Excuse me while I go and vomit into this bucket and switch you off and never think about you ever again. Again, all jokes about race just aren't funny, you know? I don't know, man. I don't know. I just don't get it. I'm not there with it, I suppose, you know? You know, I've seen memes where I'm like, that's really funny, do you know what I mean? So I guess in your own head, in your own mind, you need to give yourself a break, and certain things can be quite funny. Like the things Family Guy does with race used to be really quite funny, do you know what I mean? It's having a go at everybody. Everybody's getting it. You know, South Park used to do it. Everybody gets it in the neck. And I love that. It's great, you know? But if you're going on stage as a comedian and just telling white guy jokes as a black comedian, nah, man. That's lame as fuck. Lame, lame, lame. Same the other way around, and it would never happen the other way around, of course, but same the other way around, right? Same the other way around. Just lame. These are not casual jokes, and it is not me being uptight. They really are trashy jokes. As far as the woman stuff, I have a wife and grew up around women, and while I am not a male feminist or anything like that, but there probably is a point where any rational person just draws a line. Well, you didn't, my friend. You got involved with these jokes. The way he treats women is different because he becomes very flirty. And I know that it was always a concern of mine, because how do we get women in the hobby if we have stuff like this going on? It was so bad that my wife admitted that she would not want to bring her female friends around because of that stuff that he does. Though thankfully, he never tried to flirt with her face to face, because I absolutely would have fucked him up for that. Yeah, of course. The moment I knew I needed to stay away from him, though, was when he came into the store on our casual night, which is Wednesdays, and he told a story about how someone tried to sell him drugs, and that he ended up blowing up on this person and called him the N-word. Now, when he said he said the N-word out loud in front of everybody, and it made me realise that he is not somebody I want to be around anymore, and that was the eye-opening moment for me, and that this guy, who I really got along with, is no longer a friend I knew or cared about. Well, alright, I get ya. I'm with you. I would say that this point came a long time ago in this hobby nightmare, but that's just me. That's just me. Glad you finally realised. Part 2, as to why me and my friends are homeless. Me and my friends had all been invited to be a part of a team with Dave and some other people, and we all started to see stuff we did not like, so we kind of did a coup and started to do our own thing without him, and we stopped going to Dave's tournaments. I know for me, I do not want to be an overly hyper-competitive player, and I really don't want to be one of the dudes who wears a jersey to represent his store. I share the same sentiment that you do, and that this is extremely cringy. Yeah. Yeah, I get it. Yeah. You know, if you're at a tournament, wear all the t-shirts you want. I'll still take the piss and say, dude, you're wearing like a sports t-shirt to play with toy soldiers. I mean, you know, I can't help myself, man. It just comes out. It jumps out. But if you're going to a local store with your little team jersey on, piss off. Get out. Look at you. I am the Destroyer. It says on my name tag there. The Dark Destroyer. Right, you know, yeah. Fuck off. To add more fuel to the fire of how bad things have become, we recently found out through other friends that the damn store owner is a absolute nonce. Oh dear. Oh dear. If those of you who don't know what a nonce is, because you live in the States or something, a nonce is somebody who has offences against minors. Or, you know, most of the time, when I say minors, I mean like young, you know, not good. Not good at all. He had been convinced and he was running our local hobby store. Sorry, he had been convicted, and he was running our local hobby store. My friends and I knew as soon as we found out that there was no going back to that store. We have not been back since, and as much as I love the store itself, I cannot support a store like that. That's fair enough. That's fair enough. I couldn't either, man. I couldn't either. I'm pretty sure dude, why do I do this? I'm such a fucking moron. Read properly, you idiot. I am pretty sure the store workers do not know, which is extremely unfortunate, because those guys are really solid people. The final part where I address some things that you have said. Alright, the first thing is that I want to thank you for the content you make, North. No problem. When I wanted to unalive myself, your content was one of the few things that really kept me going, because I got to hear about others in the community who have been going through struggles as well, and it helped me realise I wasn't alone. You're not alone. No, you're not. And bear in mind, Witcher Glass, there are a lot more Hobby Nightmares that are similar that I don't put on the channel. So I get a lot of Hobby Nightmares, and I'll email people back. If I don't email you back, that means I've most likely elected to use your Hobby Nightmare, either that week or the week after, right? But those of you who don't get your things read out, normally I will email you back saying you're not alone, and I've got so many of these Hobby Nightmares that I've chosen one other to go with, and I'll put this on the back burner for a few months down the line. If we have like a slow content day, I'll read this one out, because it's similar to others that we've got that are better written or whatever, you know, that kind of thing. But just so you know, no, you are not alone. I can tell you right now, I get dozens of emails a week from people who are depressed, from people who are generally having a bad time. And you know how like, not desperate, but how low in feelings somebody has to be to email me? Do you know what I mean? I'm a moron. Do you know how, like, depressed you need to be to actually pick up the... Like, that's some grade A anxiety depression right there. Like, the best person I want to talk to is this northern freak show of a man who I'm going to email, and then, yeah, come on. Like, you know, and I always try and email back, but there are people out there who've got it worse than you. I will say this too. Like, dude, some of the stories I hear are harrowing, and don't make it onto the channel for that reason. I will only ever put your Hobby Nightmare on the channel if I think it's going to help you, or I think you might get something out of it. If I think it'll make things worse, it doesn't appear, you know. Your rant about Mental Health Awareness Month earlier this year really helped me, and was one of the things that really helped me get me back onto solid ground when I'd been doing not so great. I also wanted to thank you for the Custodies video you did recently. It gave me a much better perspective to think about it through, and it made me realise that you are right. The Games Workshop doesn't get to dictate how we feel about the game, and that they definitely don't get to tell us how we want the lore to be. I needed to hear that, and I'll be picking up my Custodies again and loving that army as much as I did before this new mindset. Also, Grey Knights are a Chad army, and I am having a ton of fun playing with them. Good man, good man. Yeah, you're right. Games Workshop do not get to dictate to you what you enjoy about your hobby and what kind of lore you like and what kind of lore you think is canon. Once you realise that, and I mean truly realise that, the pressure sort of goes away, and you can take things on their own terms. I've just gotten Skaven Tide through the door from one of our new partners who I'm going to be talking about pretty soon. And I've been reading through that book, and you know what? Taking it on its own terms is a pretty good book. It's a good game system, right? Because I've been able to take all the hatred for Age of Sigmar out of my mind, because I realise it doesn't matter what Games Workshop think, what Games Workshop want. I am going to look at this game through my own lens and see if I like it, and I do, right? you know. The last thing I wanted to address was a funny comment you made a few months ago about the worst person on Hobby Nightmares, and I think I have a top contender for you. I do not know if you remember the one guy who wrote about his friend, and all he did was brag about how great he was, and how weird his friend was for not doing this as a hobby. It is that guy I remember how you reacted to because he made you that mad, and to me, he is the worst. Yeah, so that was somebody back in the day who, I think the Hobby Nightmare you're talking about was, there was a dude who essentially wrote in about his friend saying, he was trying to make his friend be the bad guy, you know, saying, oh my god, he was so toxic, oh my god, you know, I'm such the good guy here, trying to protect people around him, and it became quite apparent that this guy was the bad guy in the story, even though he was writing in as the good guy, as the protagonist of the story. I then got an email from a person who was the subject of that story a little later on, who didn't want to do a Hobby Nightmare, but he completely debunked almost everything that guy had said in his original post, you know, which goes to show, I've learned a lot through Hobby Nightmares, man. Do not think you can write into this show and get away with stuff, and I won't figure it out. I've been at this game far too long, right? If you bullshit me, I will figure you out as I'm reading it. Sometimes reading it live, I've figured people out. I said, this is nonsense. This is absolute nonsense, right? Or take it with a grain of salt, that kind of thing. Yeah. He was so arrogant and pompous that I think he should be the worst on the tier list. I know when I was listening to a Nightmare with him in it, I said out loud, fuck this guy, he is a huge prick. But regardless, thank you for everything you do, and just know that this does mean something to a lot of us. I hope the community that you have grows and helps you as much as you help us. Thank you for everything you do. Let me know if you want me to send in more, because I think I have more stories for sure. Witcher Glass. Yeah, please do. Please do. And yeah, listen, that is exactly what we are here for. We are here to ensure that, you know, you don't feel on your own. You're literally not there on your own, isolated, being cast adrift. That's not what the hobby's about. But with the way the hobby's going, with, you know, forced inclusivity and modern politics being thrown into it, and Games Workshop telling a lot of us that we're not welcome here anymore, I think channels like mine need to step up and be that glue that says, okay, no, you are wanted here, and yes, your opinion does matter, right? I don't know, man. I don't know. The Discord is down below if you guys want to go over there. I've started putting it on there again. I took it off for a while because the Discord was growing at an exponential rate and it was getting unmanageable. But I think now we're at a good stage where I can open it up again. So I think we're going to put it on the description now so more people can get help. It is free. You don't need to be on the Patreon. You don't need to give me any money. It's always been free and it always will be free. All right? It's down below. I love you all a long time. I will speak to you tomorrow with Outlaw Circle, where we're going to be talking about how much of an absolute mess the Horus Heresy is. I'll see you then. Have a good one. Bye now.